Yeah.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the NerdBall Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your humble host, Pete Rogers, and I am joined by one of my fellow nerds. It is the resident old man, Clark Barnes. Clark, how you doing today?
Doing great, Pete.
Both enjoying a chilled beverage, it seems.
Indeed. One moment.
The only way to
I'm doing podcast. Go away. Sorry. Yeah. I stopped drinking before the podcast and on the podcast for the most part for professionalism.
Of course.
But tonight we are enjoying a nice Big Sky Brewing Company Moose
lovely.
Drool for you darker ale fans.
Yes. Nice. I am enjoying a Hefeweizen by Paulaner.
Oh man, that's my favorite.
Oh yeah,
Hefeweizen. I'm not a huge fan of the genre, but that one is fantastic.
But this one is fantastic. It's very nice,
in my opinion. Yeah.
A very nice sippable beverage, which that's what you want for a show like this. You want something to just casually sip on and enjoy. While we get to enjoy talking about football and specifically fantasy football, let's just jump right into it, Clark. Why don't we start off with your nerdgasm? What was your nerdgasm from this past week?
I don't really have one. I lost every matchup in all of my FFPC leagues and was trounced pretty bad. Whereas last week, I hit all those guys and won. So no nerdgasm. I got my old. I changed my oil today. I've been meaning to do that for 2 weeks. So
there you go.
That's about it. Yeah.
That's about it. That's all you got. Well, then let's jump into my nerdgasm and let's just spend, I don't know, Clark, maybe 40 minutes talking about Justin Fields because it's just been glorious. It feels to me one of those beautiful moments when everyone in the world knows how a player should be used. And all of a sudden, the coaching staff is like, oh, maybe we use this player in this way. And the stars align and you get ridiculous performances, both from fantasy and from real football. But Justin Fields has been an absolute tear these last, 5 weeks since week 5. He has been basically I think he's been the QB1 now after his ridiculous performance against the Dolphins since week 6. And his Dolphins performance where he set an NFL record for rushing yards from a quarterback in a single game, 178 yards. We've obviously been very high on Justin Fields on this podcast, just in terms of the potential that he has as a quarterback. We wanted him to play in an offense that would actually kind of take advantage of his skill set, which is an elite rushing ability. And we're starting to finally see that come to fruition. They went out and got Chase Claypool, the Bears did. And so now they're starting to get some weapons for him. But it really is just an instance of you love to see players succeed, and you love to see players with this very unique skill set being utilized with the skill set that they have. Justin Fields has been doing that. That's been happening in Chicago, and it has led to some truly fantastical performances by him. And as someone who maybe went and snagged him off waivers in my home league, I can't wait to see what else he's got in store for us this year.
Yeah, it's been great to see. So the Bears have some fantasy relevant talent on their roster. David Montgomery was a later round pick, and then Khalil Herbert has really come on this year, and they're being hamstrung by the offense. Darnell Mooney, pretty good. Probably not a great number 1 wide receiver, but a lot better than he's played. Cole Kmet, I don't think he's that great, but he's better than how he's played. And so finally, over the past 4 games or so, it looks like they're just letting Justin Fields play. It hasn't been a 4-game stretch against a bunch of horrible teams. They played Washington, not so great, but New England, good defense, at Dallas, and Miami's letting everyone score, but Fields got 42, points FFPC scoring. So that's a good one. I'm excited. I have a team where I somehow accidentally invested a lot in the Bears skill positions because I just kept trading down over and over and over. Sure. So this is exciting for me, and hopefully it's exciting for Bears fans and other fantasy owners who've had kind of a rough go with the likes of Darnell Mooney and David Montgomery.
Yeah, you're hoping that as the Justin Fields tide rises, it lifts all of the players in that offense. Khalil Herbert has been an efficiency monster this season, and he's put together some should have it off the top of my head, but his per rating is one of the best among running backs right now. He's been, and that's been throughout the season. He's been, where is he? Khalil Herbert, 0.94 fantasy points per touch right now, which is top 10 in the league, I think, right now amongst running backs. I think the thing that I have just loved about Justin Fields' emergence is that you're right in that it's just like they're letting him play football, and he has such a tantalizing talent. And you saw it against Miami. There was his 65-yard rushing touchdown run where he like pump faked at the line of scrimmage, landed, and then instantly accelerated and broke 4 tackles of 5 surrounding Dolphins players, and then broke it off for a 65-yard touchdown. So like, you just with in a league where it is, I would say 50-50 that you see young talent just get completely underutilized and young talent getting utilized to their full potential. 50-50 might be generous. It might be far more towards the underutilized. It's great to see a player who's like, things are clicking for him. Things are clicking for the Bears. And while it hasn't, directly led to wins, it's made the Bears a much more interesting team. And it's made the Bears much more confident in their future moving forward, right? Like you have to look at this stretch from Justin Fields and be like, okay, this is a quarterback who does some really unique things that we can build an offense around. Now let's invest. I mean, you should have invested this offseason, but like, let's spend this offseason really investing in getting pieces for him.
Yeah. And that's the little tragedy, Cito, is that his contract is going to be wasted because
they're still going to be bad next year. And then the year after that is his 4th year. The like you said, the time to move was this offseason, but whatever. We need more good QBs in the league, and it seems like the shackles are off with Fields. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting. I had a point to make about how amazing things are, but I think all of it was just to say that on the other end of the spectrum, this is just pain, a knife in the wound. It's just like, come on, Arthur Smith, learn how to use Kyle Pitts. My latest theory is that Arthur Smith is very intentionally not using Kyle Pitts correctly to tank the Falcons so that they can get CJ Stroud or one of the top quarterbacks. And then suddenly we're going to see Kyle Pitts being utilized as he should be utilized. But maybe that'll never happen until he gets traded to a different team or assigned to a different team or Arthur Smith gets fired.
All right, since we're talking about the Falcons and what's going on with the Falcons,
talk to me.
I think Arthur Smith just realizes that Marcus Mariota is not good. And Atlanta is kind of a la the old NFC East where teams under 500 got to make the playoffs. Atlanta's in first place, I think. And
it's wild.
Like 4 or 5 or something. I mean, so I think this is a Marcus Mariota problem. And that's why Pitts isn't getting the ball mainly. And a little bit of Arthur Smith being stubborn. But I have no long-term concerns for the Towers in Atlanta.
You are right. Because especially when you look at target share, like Kyle Pitts, 22.9% target share in Atlanta, which is top 3 amongst tight ends. And I assume that the 2 Towers you're talking about is also Drake London.
Yes, sir.
Drake London, 27.9% target share, which is what, 6 amongst wide receivers. So like those 2 guys are getting, for as little as the Falcons are throwing the ball, they are throwing it to those 2 guys. They are targeting those 2 guys. And if you put a decent quarterback in there, an above average quarterback, you're hopefully getting a lot more production. Kyle Pitts must lead the league in like air yards because that man has been multiple games now where he's gotten over like 200 yards if he had just gotten good balls thrown to him.
Yeah. And I think this is something that I like to do each season is write down some thoughts about what I think about what is happening in the season now, because it's so much harder to do this in March when you're trying to prepare for the next season. So you nailed it of we are right that Drake London and Kyle Pitts are totally dominating this passing game, but there's so little passing game that it doesn't matter. The opposite side of that coin, and this is just to keep in mind for drafting next year, making trades, things like that, is we worried about Derrick Henry, taking a step back perhaps and not being what he used to be. But even if that has happened, he gets so many touches that it doesn't matter if he takes a step back. So a couple of things, it's just interesting how it always plays out. But if you're really a nerd and you're really into this fantasy game, take some notes right now about how you feel about the draft or the pre-draft narratives that were going on, and just try to learn from that, and it gives you a little bit more context for next year. And it's fun to read. Like Jonathan Taylor versus Christian McCaffrey. It's like, yeah, who would have nailed? Well, Christian McCaffrey's super interesting because he got traded to the Niners. Okay, we didn't know, right?
No.
No. Sometimes you just can't.
Sometimes these are completely unpredictable. Yeah, Derrick Henry, 80.7% opportunity share in Tennessee, which is third amongst running backs. Like that man, he's approaching the level of like the Tom Bradyisms of just like, he just there might not be a cliff.
He is a man playing outside of his era.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's really cool when you see him sizing up a corner. And it's not fair.
No.
And I'm not going to dog on the corner.
He's a linebacker. Like he's bigger than half the linebackers in the league.
A big linebacker. Like the size linebacker that they don't really even play anymore.
No.
Because it's too big.
Yeah. He's a linebacker. He's the size of a linebacker that's been pushed out of the league. No, Derrick Henry, and it's a testament to his talent. And I know we like
what
talking
else
about
are we going to talk about?
What else are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
But it's a testament to Derrick Henry's talent and just like raw ability that the Titans can almost win a game against the Chiefs with Malik Willis in the backfield at quarterback under center. And you just know they're going to run the football. It's all going through Derrick Henry, and somehow Derrick Henry like routinely will get the yardage that you need, make the plays that need to happen. It's wild how consistent that man is, despite the fact that every defense that goes up against him is just like, all right, all we have to do is stop Derrick Henry, and this whole offense falls to pieces. And yet it's got to be one of the most difficult things in the league.
Yeah. And the Titans, or for the past several years, the Titans have done this where they look amazing against good teams, and then they'll lose a stinker to the Jaguars or something.
Yep.
I know they just pasted the Texans all over the side of the highway, but it's interesting to see Malik get some play time. It looks like Vrabel is trying to be a nice guy to him. We're gleaning things from like seeing him on the sideline. So I don't know, but like he is being encouraging to him.
Yes.
And Malik is a very unique player. He's not great as a passer right now, but it would be cool, I think, just let it roll, and you're just going to run like read option stuff with Malik until he gets hurt, then you put Tannehill back.
Yeah, if you like really had a read option game going with this, there's the speed of Malik Willis paired with the power and speed of Derrick Henry. Just like, what are you going to do as a defense?
It's just bootlegging. They did it a lot against the Chiefs. They just bootleg out, and then it's a run play for Malik. Right. So what are you going to do? Are you going to send guys over to the strong side with everybody pulling for Derrick Henry? Or are you going to worry about rookie Malik Willis? Well,
just taking off and going.
That's tough.
If only they had like a true number one wide receiver on this team, like an AJ Brown type, like a kind of yards after carry guy. I feel like that would really help this offense. All right, Clark, let's talk some fantasy football now. Some actionable fantasy football advice for people, since I know that's what everyone's tuning in to hear. Week 10 must starts, and I'll start us off because this player is on the Falcons, so we spent a good chunk of time talking about the Falcons. Cordarrelle Patterson is back on the field. He gets to play the Carolina Panthers this week, and he is a player that you should be having in your starting lineups with confidence. The Panthers have allowed 29.1 points per game over the last 4 weeks, which is the third most. We obviously know they just got absolutely roasted by Joe Mixon last week, who scored 5 touchdowns on them. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, Pete, that's probably skewed their last 4 weeks point totals, didn't it? Never fear. They're still the fourth worst when you look at a full season standpoint, averaging 27.5 points per game. 2 running backs. Patterson has been, when he's healthy and on the field, has been one of the most consistent and efficient backs. He ranks top 10 in both our neck and per ratings. He's averaging almost a fantasy point per touch. And as we've talked about, a team that does not throw the football, but loves to run the football, it's a sure bet Patterson's going to get anywhere between 13 and 15 touches, I would say at the minimum. And averaging a point per touch almost, you're getting about 13 to 15 points, especially in a plus matchup. I am loving Cordarrelle Patterson as a fringe RB1 maybe this week. I should see what Nick has him rated as, but I think he's certainly a must start.
I think inside the top 16 or so for sure.
Nick's got him as a RB11 this week, which I'll take it.
And talk about running backs that have been fun to watch. It's been a down year for quarterback, and this is a good reason to write things down because I think going into next season, we're going to see Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes going really, really early in drafts. And I think the story is going to be, well, now there's an elite class of quarterbacks, so now it's worth drafting them. Whereas I don't really think much has changed other than Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford not having a great year, things like, people I think are going to bounce back. Anyway, really awesome to see Cordarrelle doing what he can do. Some of these running backs stepping up in the absence of awesome quarterback play and really carrying their teams.
Cordarrelle Patterson also has a special place in your heart since you were the only person on Twitter to accurately call his breakout season last year.
There you go. And that has paid off in spades.
Who's a must start for you this week, Clark?
So this is one that I hope people stuck with, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster. He's put together 3 good games in a row. He's not getting monster volume, but I think he's got at least 5-6 targets in the past several games. He put up 22, 25, and 18 PPR points in the last 3 games. And the Chiefs this week
Jaguars
are going up against the Jaguars, so not a lot to worry about there. Juju, I think, has emerged as the clear number 2 option. We'll see what happens with Kadarius Toney, but for right now, he really is a solid wide receiver too that I think you can feel very confident just plugging and playing for the rest of the year.
Totally. And this Chiefs offense has really started to kind of get the ball rolling, and they've put an emphasis, despite the fact that there's no Tyreek Hill. It is pretty incredible. I saw someone tweet this out, the fact that Patrick Mahomes is like having a career year without Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill is having a career year without Patrick Mahomes. Just, as a side note, immense talent was there. And sometimes even maybe too much immense talent makes for not as productive fantasy purposes.
Maybe.
Is it bad to be too talented, Clark? That's
it's hurt me.
Boston radio is going to talk.
It's hurt me personally, but I found a way to overcome it.
You are a true champion. Wow, Clark. I'm proud of you.
We should talk soon or sometime this season about the impact of superstar pull at other positions. I mean, what we've seen with Tyreek Hill changing teams and DeAndre Hopkins coming back and AJ Brown really injecting life into. We have to look at the other side of things. Is like, your thoughts of Aaron Rodgers before this aside, he is excellent, but he doesn't have anybody to throw.
Amazing what happens when you get rid of one of, if not the best wide receiver in football.
Yeah, I mean, and Rodgers is missing throws too. It's not all the rest of the team, but
he definitely has short armed some deep shots this season. No, it's it's one of those things where it's like maybe you keep your 28-year-old all-star wide receiver instead of signing your 38-year-old quarterback to a.
And what frustrates the hell out of me, the side of that is like, what the hell is Justin Fields supposed to do other than run? What is Lamar Jackson supposed to do other than run? Like, what do you expect when people don't have quarterbacks?
Rashad Bateman getting
anyone
injured
to throw the
is
ball
just
to?
Devastating. I like the Juju call.
Thanks.
Spinning it back around.
Spirited show today.
I know. Hey man, this is what happens when you have just a little bit of lubrication. We get into tangents and we go down them.
I get half a beer in me, and boy,
I've got feelings. Well, let's stay on the Kansas City Chiefs Jaguars game, because on the flip side, I really like Christian Kirk this week against KC. The Chiefs secondary is giving up 36.4 points per game this year, which is 7th to wide receivers, but they have been a little bit worse, 6th most points per game to slot receivers. And that is, you can take all of the blame for L'Jarius Sneed or Justin Reed, both of those guys who are predominantly playing in this slot for the Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed, 92.3 QBR, Justin Reed, 110 quarterback rating against him. So their Chiefs are not doing really great covering the slot. Obviously, that's where Christian Kirk does all of his damage from. And he's already, he's a locked in wide receiver 1. He's proven that consistently throughout this season. And this is a matchup where I'm sure he's going to feast. And in a game too, where we talked about the Chiefs offense starting to get going and really putting points on the board. If the Jaguars are going to want to win this game or stay in this game, they're going to have to go toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes throwing it around. And so I think you could see something where Christian Kirk is, getting targeted heavily by Trevor Lawrence, and puts together a really strong game against a favorable matchup.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I was out on Christian Kirk, just didn't believe in him and didn't believe in the Jaguars, but he is playing really well. And about the only thing that I think is sticky that allows us to make, even halfway decent calls on players is volume. And Christian Kirk is obviously, in the mind of the coaching staff and Trevor Lawrence, the number one guy. Even though he plays out the slot, he's not like a quote number one wide receiver. He's their top receiver. I saw on Twitter today, and I forget the guy's name, so I feel bad. He mentioned, Doug Marrone said that Christian Kirk should be getting 11, 12 targets a game. And since then, he's had 10, 7, and 9 targets. And so when you have a player who's playing pretty good and he's going to get the ball, that helps you break all those tiebreakers of like, well, there's this other guy who could really go off, or, good old boring number 10 wide receiver in the league. Fantasy points wise, Christian Kirk.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, to toot our own horn, because we are a website that we want to promote. That's one of the things that I love about our neck consistency and efficiency rating, is that is the tool that really helps you see those players whom maybe aren't getting you huge fantasy performances on a weekly basis, but they're very consistently getting you what they are, if that makes sense. So someone like, and I'm going to write about this in this week's volatility index, but like Adam Thielen is a flex receiver so far this year. I think he's the wide receiver 33.5 point PPR. So flex, fringe wide receiver 2. But he has been one of the most consistent wide receivers this season in terms of neck rating, which just means it's just like, yes, he's maybe not going to give you a huge ceiling, but you can plug him into your lineup as your flex and feel confident that that's what he's going to get you regardless of matchup. And so it's a tool that I really love to utilize when making those kind of like decisions between two players, where it's like, yes, this person could have a super high game, which if my lineup can support that, awesome, let's go for the home run. But if I'm like, no, I need, this is my wide receiver 2, I need to make sure I get a good game out of my wide receiver 2. I'm using neck rating to kind of see, all right, this person really has not a huge standard deviation amongst their fantasy performance. So I can trust that what they're giving me is what I'm going to get week in, week out.
I mean, and after we've seen, fashion statement game from Kirk Cousins, the sky's the limit.
I mean, ooh, Kirky Cousins. Those chains were looking very sweet. Also, Kirk Cousins, like low-key jacked. Well done, Kirk Cousins, for like being in shape.
I don't understand that.
I didn't anticipate that.
He's quarterback in the NFL, man. Like, unless
I can tell you
Ben Roethlisberger.
I can tell you Mac Jones does not have a 6-pack. Maybe he does now. He did notoriously work out this offseason. So maybe
you should write him a letter and ask, like a pen and paper letter.
I'll handwrite it and I'll say, "Dear Mac, please send me a photo of you topless."
I'm a 35-year-old fantasy football analyst.
Please send me a shirtless photo. Thank you. Love, Pete. Do you have any more must starts this week?
I do. Antonio Gibson has been a nice surprise.
Love it.
JD McKissic went down with injury, a neck injury. I think he's going to be out this week. We won't know until later in this week. But Antonio Gibson has moved into the JD McKissic role, which is what Antonio Gibson is really good at. And he's been posting way better numbers than Brian Robinson. I think someone who will pull more trade value, certainly in Dynasty, but probably in your regular leagues too. And Brian Robinson's been having a bunch of really crappy games. I know this because I have been starting him everywhere and been very disappointed. But Gibson's looking good. He's catching passes out of the backfield, and he's getting the high leverage opportunities. He's getting end zone looks and things like that. So he's not so much a must start, but it's that if you have a list of Jags and Antonio Gibson is on that list, well, then he's the one. You put him in as your flex running back too, and you feel as confident as you can on a pretty tough bye week.
Yeah. And again, I love Antonio Gibson because he's another really high running back in neck rating. He's been extremely consistent. He is the RB 19, I think, in half point PPR right now. And he has very rarely strayed far away from that. And he has been giving you a pretty consistent turnout around those ratings. And so he's a great player to be like, okay, again, just in the same situation we were talking about earlier. It's like, I need an RB2 or a flex whom I could just plug in, be confident, And I think that is 100% Antonio Gibson against a good Eagles defense, but a defense, this is Antonio Gibson's been getting it done recently.
Yeah, it's hard to predict this in the NFL, but I bet that Washington's going to be playing from behind and going to be forced to throw.
A fair bet, I would say.
So maybe a little extra lean in Gibson's favor here.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so there you go. There's some must starts for week 10 fantasy football. And before we go, it is time to drop our top 5, do some top 5 listing. And this week, top 5 players I'm giving up on in fantasy. These are the players that I maybe have held on to for too long, and I just can't stomach it anymore. Maybe it's a player you're straight up releasing. I think there's only one of those guys on this list really for me. But mostly it's players who I know you're selling low on them, but sell because I just don't see the ship riding too well. Quickly, honorable mention. If you're still holding on to Cam Akers, I don't know what to tell you. Drop Cam Akers. This Rams offense is garbage, and Cam Akers is not a part of it. So that's where we're going to start. Number 5, start with Cortland Sutton in Denver. And this is my number 5 because it really I just don't know if Russell Wilson is totally cooked, but if Russell Wilson is cooked, then Cortland Sutton and his Broncos offense is obviously in for a rude awakening. Sutton started the year really well, and he was very highly involved in the Broncos offense. But then over the last 3 weeks, he's had 3 targets, 9 targets, and 4 targets, and he's only turned that into very, very low fantasy performances. At most, he's had 23 yards in those last 3 games. So coming out of their bye, Russell Wilson looked healthier against the Jaguars. And so maybe we start seeing back kind of week 1, week 2, week 3, or first half of the season, Cortland Sutton, when he was seeing double-digit targets on a pretty regular basis. But if that is not the case, I would move on from. The schedule is encouraging moving forward. There are a lot of games. They still have to play the Chiefs twice, which is going to be a shootout, and play the Raiders once, Titans, Panthers, Ravens, Cardinals. There's a lot of games there that could be explosive if this offense can get it going. And so number 5, he's a player whom I would be listening to offers for, maybe trying to get out from under if I hear the right offer, but a guy who I'm certainly worried about and maybe testing the end of my patience with.
Yeah, he's borderline for me. I had him everywhere because I was super confident in Denver's offense this year. Big miss on that one, obviously. He's riding the pine unless I'm very desperate, and then I'm just putting him in there and hoping that Russell has figured it out. And
let's
I don't think he's cooked. I think it's going to be a rough year, but we'll see next year.
Yeah. Which means, I mean, we talked about narratives, Clark, going into 2023. I can already hear myself spinning the narrative that the Broncos are all undervalued because of their shitty season, and this is the year to buy all your Broncos players because they're all going to be undervalued, and they're actually going to get it and piece it together this year. Yeah,
with new head coach Sean Payton leading the way in Denver.
Yes. If Sean Payton comes out of retirement to coach the Broncos, I'm going to be drafting the whole Broncos offense way too early.
Or maybe he'll go to the Cowboys and young fella. Oh gosh, who's the offensive coordinator for them?
Yes, I can picture him, which is surprising because normally
this is why we
picture
need
an
3
offensive
people
coordinator
on the show.
This is what Jordan is here for.
Anyway, the exciting offensive coordinator for the Cowboys going to Denver.
This is going to kill me. Cowboys OC. Kellen Moore. Oh, thank God. That guy. Number 4. My number 4 player I'm giving up on in fantasy, Michael Pittman Jr. I traded him in a dynasty league. I think I got a good deal for him. I needed quarterback, so I got myself Kirk Cousins, and then I got Kadarius Toney before he got traded. So that one panned out very nicely for yours truly. But this Colts offense, and you'll see this is obviously the running theme through these players. This Colts offense is a real hot mess. Their offensive line is in shambles. You've got Sam Ehlinger now under center with head coach freaking Jeff Saturday. Sure, I guess that is going to work. Who knows what the Colts are going to be this year? And Michael Pittman Jr., while he is clearly the Colts' number 1 wide receiver, and he has put together wide receiver 1 performances so far this season, it's been very up and down and very bumpy for him. And if I could get out from under him, I certainly would. They have a tougher schedule, especially at the end of the year. They're playing some tougher teams that it's just, I'm not going to love playing and trusting Michael Pittman Jr. for being even a wide receiver 2 rest of the year. Yeah, I'm a little iffy on that.
I so far you have hit 2 people that have just been killing me, but I am just sticking with, like, these were Pittman wasn't my guy, but I just felt a very easily top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah.
And he's playing poorly. I mean, he didn't cost the Colts the game, but I mean, he had a very easy pass that he could have pulled in late that Ellinger made the throw, and Pittman missed it. And Pittman's not good enough or explosive enough to miss those kinds of plays. Like, if Tyreek drops a ball every now and again, who cares? Because it's Tyreek Hill. He can just run past everyone on the next play. Pittman's been rough. Oh, Pete, you're killing me with these, but this is a good list.
I'm sorry, Clark. It pains me. I was going to include, but then I realized that he is now injured and done for the season. Had we done this like 1 or 2 weeks ago, Michael Thomas would have been number 1 headline on this list, because he has just been sitting both in my bench, in my IR spot every other week, trying to figure out whether or not he's ever going to see the field again.
If there's one more player that if you name them, it's going to be a bingo. So we'll see.
We'll see. Number 3, talking about offenses that are just stuck in the mud. Tyler Higbee for the Los Angeles Rams. If you're still holding on to him, I know tight end is a position where, like, if you have someone who is getting a huge target share, it's so hard to move off of that player. And Tyler Higbee started averaging double-digit targets. He had 11, 9, 4, 14, 10 through the first 5 weeks. Like, that is a elite target share for a tight end. Since then, 2, 6, and 1. And this offense, Matthew Stafford is dealing with a concussion right now. This whole offense just looks completely out of whack, completely lost. He is a guy who I don't think you're getting any trade for. You should drop Tyler Higbee and stream the tight end position. There are tight ends out there who I like a lot more, who are readily available in leagues. Greg Dulcich for the Denver Broncos, the king of all fantasy tight ends, is a guy who you should be going to get. Let's see. I also did my waiver wire targets, and let's see who else I had. Greg Dulcich, Cad Otton for the Bucks has been playing pretty good. Cole Kmet had a good game. Noah Fant and Hunter Henry. Those guys are all guys who I'd rather have over Tyler Higbee. Move on from all pieces of this Rams offense who are not named Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, this is tough. Like you said, the tight end landscape is pretty bleak. I'm going to stick with Higbee where I have to in leagues where, guys like Dulcich aren't on the waiver wire. But after a pretty promising start, a lot of that production seems to be going to Allen Robinson's side, which is good, but it's also like, when a tiny slice of the pie goes to someone else, does the tree in the forest hear it? I don't know.
That is the saying. I've heard it both ways. What am I at? 2. Sorry, people. AJ Dillon isn't happening this year. If you're still holding on to AJ Dillon, he is right now currently the RB38 in half point PPR. If you get rid of week 1, in which he had a touchdown, 45 yards, he finishes the RB10. If you get rid of week 1, so from week 2 to week 9, he falls down to my point is not as cool as I thought it was going to be. So ignore that point, but know that AJ Dillon has not been the surefire RB2 that everyone kind of expected him to be. He's had some decent performances, but really it has been a lot of middling flex to low RB4 outings for him. And this is an offense that, good Lord, is it a hot mess outside of Alan Lazard, who, ya boy, was all for this offseason, and things are coming to fruition. But AJ Dillon is a guy who I think at this point, I am either, if you can trade him, go for it. Otherwise, he's maybe not quite worth it, especially if you're in a shallow league. He's worth moving on from.
Yeah, and he might be a good sabotage drop candidate.
I think what we were excited about with AJ Dillon is expecting this offense to maybe take a step back, but still be pretty good. And we were going to get goal line looks from Dillon, and that was going to be great. I think something's wrong with AJ Dillon. I think that he's hurt. He is not looking as explosive as he has looked in the past. If when you watch the Packers game, Aaron Jones is out there trying to light guys up, and he looks strong, and he is clearly a favorite of Aaron Rodgers. Dillon just looks, I don't know, he looks injured, like some kind of nagging ankle or something. He looks slow. He does not look explosive like he did last year. I don't think that he's forgotten how to play.
No.
But him not looking great and being in an offense that has been really, really hampered scoring wise, to be nice. It's just, I would try to get something from him, but you could cut him and see someone else suffer through starting him for a few weeks, and that might be fun.
Yeah, there you go, Clark. That's how you sabotage your league mates. Drop a hot name and then see everyone spend their fab on him and ultimately be unrewarded for picking him up. Yes, he's a guy who maybe I would send out some buy low feelers in Dynasty and try to see if I can snag him on the real cheap, because you're right. I definitely don't think he's forgot how to play football. I think this Packers offense is going to look, I won't say better, but maybe more effective next year, because I just don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back there next year. And I think they're going to have to change what this structure is. Anywho's, AJ Dillon, number 2 player who I'm giving up on. My number 1 player who I'm giving up on in fantasy this year. Luckily, I do not have any shares of him because if I had the 101, I would have gone with Christian McCaffrey 10 out of 10 times. But if you've been holding on to Jonathan Taylor all of this time, I know he's finally maybe making a return, but he is not worth it. He is not worth still stashing. Even when he has been playing football, he has been ineffective, not very productive. He is the 3rd worst running back in neck ratings in terms of consistency and production, and he has the worst per rating amongst running backs, averaging about half a point per touch. And so he is not getting the elite workload. Well, I shouldn't say that. He is getting an elite workload. He's just not being efficient with it. And like I said with Michael Pittman Jr., this offense is garbage, particularly their offensive line. And while we spent half of the show talking about how amazing Derrick Henry is and how you can put 13 in the box and Derrick Henry will still give you 5 yards, teams are going to stack the box against Sam Ehlinger and Jonathan Taylor with a very weak offensive line this year. I don't think is going to be able to get the efficiency that he is required to get, or you need him to get. And so at this point, I would trade him. I would find someone in your league who maybe has higher expectations for him for the rest of the year, but get out from under him. Try to salvage as much as you can. Maybe wait. This week is against the Patriots, and the Patriots run defense is legit. So I don't know. Sorry, this week is against the Raiders. This week is against the Raiders, which is a bad run defense.
I think you're happy to take dimes on the dollar for Jonathan Taylor at this point. The Colts were beginning to build not a dynasty, but they were rebuilding, recovering from the unexpected retirement of Andrew Luck. And they were doing that with a hot young running back and a good offensive line. And then they traded they let 2 of their best offensive linemen go, and that has killed them. Matt Ryan maybe would be a lot better behind a better offensive line, but he's not. He has no mobility. So I think the Colts are tanking or whatever. They're clearly not going to be bothered if they lose a few games. No. And Ehlinger gives you more mobility and, might ensure a couple of extra L's. Taylor, I got offered Jonathan Taylor and another good piece the other day for Mark Andrews. And when I read Jonathan Taylor's name, I just immediately thought, nope, not interested. Just like, it's been a mess. Yeah. I'll be interested in him next year. He has a high ankle sprain and it's been bothering him. And so even when a really, really good running back has that injury in a good scenario, it can be a horrible nagging mess that just kills their production, but doesn't keep them out of games, which is the worst because then you get excited about starting them. I think Taylor still has enough cachet. There's still probably a couple of people in your league where you could bundle Jonathan Taylor and somebody else to get a wide receiver or a tight end that you need. You're going to feel like you're losing the deal, but you should just sell that old car now before it just totally breaks down.
Yeah.
There's no bad.
I completely agree. Package him up for like Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, not the sexiest pick, but he's getting you consistently high-end RB2 numbers. Like that's a guy whom, maybe you can get Ramondre Stevenson just because he's not like an RB1 name, but he has been an RB1 very consistently for the last couple of weeks now, so he might be hard to pry away. But like I'm looking at guys whom don't have real name recognition, don't have a lot of pub, but have been very consistent for you. And Miles Sanders stands out in that category. Our boy Khalil Herbert, I think, is a good consistency pick. If you're looking at running backs, that's just where I was looking.
I mean, I would take Olave. I would take
sure. Yeah. That's
Lazard. I would take DK Metcalf. These are what I would take Juju.
Yep.
I think Gabriel Davis is going to come back. So, I mean, I'm talking like a middling starting wide receiver. I'd be over the moon if I could salvage that value.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Well, there you go. Those are my top 5 players that I'm giving up on in fantasy. Clark agreed with everyone, and half of them are on Clark's team. So we know Clark's killing it this year.
I made a couple of quick notes. Mine aren't as spicy. Mostert and Stafford are done for me. And Drake London, unfortunately.
Ooh, I thought about putting him in, but that target share is saucy. But it is. Yeah, I agree. He's a guy whom it's probably not going to come back for him.
I love the player, but the coaches, he told us what he's going to do, and he's telling us what he's going to do,
and he's doing it. Yep.
So, we should believe him.
Yep. That's people sometimes speak the truth, Clark. Like your boy. I was going to say Mike LaFleur, but it's not Mike LaFleur. Who's the Dolphins OC? Hey, head coach.
Mike McDaniel.
My
favorite now.
Mikey McD. Not to be confused with Josh McDaniels, whom doing great out there in Las Vegas.
Boy, it's not been great.
Yikes, Josh! Just please don't come back. Don't come back to New England. I need Belichick to just purge this whole coaching staff, and let's get some creativity in there, please. And maybe we should have traded up to draft Justin Fields. All right. That's all we got for you this week. Make sure you rate and subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice, and follow us on Twitter at NerdBallFF. You can follow myself at Peter Rogers and Clark at NFL Clark. And of course, make sure you check out all the amazing content that we're putting out over on the site at nerdballff.com. Until next week, my fellow nerds.